Hi, I'm Stuart from Wonderful Life and I'm our Business Development Manager, and today I'm here with Carolyn from King Connect, and we're going to ask some questions about how she foresees things happening within the salon business. So what are the biggest challenges that you see salons facing in the next couple of years?
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting what happens. There's going to be lots of challenges, but I think one of the really big things that we've got is when we look at what's happened in the past years, we've needed our industry to get regulated. There's no regulating for the hair and the beauty industry. When we look at what's going on with the aesthetics industry, it desperately needs regulating. But I really don't believe that's going to happen. And what we saw during the pandemic was the insurance companies started to regulate us in a way with colour testing. Now, it was nothing new, but all of a sudden, salons panicked and they were worried whether they were insured or whether they were not insured. And what we're already starting to see is the insurance companies are getting stricter and stricter on what we do and how we do things in the salon. And what we're also seeing is that people, if they've not followed the correct manufacturer instructions, they haven't followed the rules, they haven't read or understood their insurances, they're not going to have that cover, and that's what we're finding happening. So they have a problem, and the insurance companies go, you know what, you didn't follow the guidelines, you haven't got insurance, and that's going to be a serious problem in the future. So when we look at regulation, I really don't believe the government are interested in regulating us because they don't need to. They're happy that the insurance company is going to do that. So that's what's going to regulate us. I actually think it's probably a good thing because it's going to bring our professionalism up. And we won't be able to get away with, what we do with your hair today. Our consultations are going to be needing to be better. We're going to need to do better documentation. And the technology is there to take a before photo, log it, take an after photo, log it, write about the condition of the hair, write exactly what we want. We need to get into detail, and that's also going to stand us out from our competitors. So I really think insurance changes, it feels difficult, it feels uncomfortable, it feels like it's a problem, but actually I think professionally it could be really good for our industry, and that's what's going to regulate us.
Yeah, it's interesting that you think that way. It makes total sense for that to happen because we already have had this massive interest with the insurance and how people are liable, and people have been so interested in knowing that side of things that essentially, like you say, that's going to regulate us, that's going to do the regulating for us, which is a really good thing. So what other challenges, things like the high street, and how do you think the high street challenges that they're having is going to affect salons?
Okay, so I think we've got to go, it's going to get a lot worse actually before it gets better. We can see that already happening. And the pandemic's brought that on quicker. The high street was always going to change. Buying habits were always going to become different. And I speak to most of my team and none of them even shop in the high street. They buy everything online. So we're going to see that change. And probably up to 75% of retail space is going to go and become residential. That's not going to happen overnight. My fear is that because it won't happen very quickly, like I said, it's going to get worse. And I think if you end up in the bad end of town and you end up with retail shops boarded up around you, as salons, we're going to have to be prepared to move to the right part of the high street. But we've got to stay there on the high street because all you've got to do is look at all the predictions for the future and how the future high street looks. And health and well-being is a huge sector. They see that as where people want to be. Cafes, restaurants, parks, more green space, retail but with activity type retail. So we have to stay on the high street. I think it's going to go down, but I think as human beings, we need to be around other people. Hair salons are community, so we need to be there, and nobody else is going to do our job. You're not going to be able to buy a haircut online. So I think we're part of the future of the high street. I think we need to be there.
Yeah, it makes total sense because we're saying about experiences and things like that, and I think with the high street, the reason you would eventually, in the future maybe go to the high street is just solely going to be for the experience of the high street, or I suppose the community, the social aspect for it. And I think we're lucky in our industry that we have both of those aspects. It's a very social business to be in, and it's also experience-led. The salons that are doing more experiences for their customers are finding that they have a better satisfaction, a better loyalty, a better returning visit and things like that. So it makes total sense for us to be a key part of the future high street. Really.
Absolutely, yeah.
So with that, it sort of leads me on to retail. What do you think the buying habits are going to be of customers getting their retail from the seller.
Well, of course, that habit's change and change forever, so people are used to online buying. Even when they're in a shop, I mean, what we know is we recommend products to our customers and they'll go online and buy it instead of buy it for us. And we think, why would you do that? Because price isn't always the factor anymore. We were really concerned when our suppliers started to supply online, or products could be, professional products could be bought on Amazon. You know, it was like, what was happening to our industry? Well, it was going to happen. But price isn't always why people buy, and I think as stylists we don't give good enough advice, and I think that advice creates loyalty. So if we're giving our customers the right advice and we're giving them what they need for home, and it's there, it's possible for them to buy there and then, I think people get used to buying again from us, and I've certainly seen that trend already change. By giving more advice, people are starting to buy for us. I think stylists have given up a little bit and think that we've just not got that business anymore, and I think that's really wrong. I think it's going to come back for us because we're going to be on the high street. We're going to be one of the few people that are still on the high street, and people love shopping. You know, they do love doing it. So I think it's going to attract people in, and we're going to be that interactive selling. So I think do not give up on retail. I still think it's a big part of our industry, and I think it will grow in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I think that the experience that a customer has then makes them feel happier, and we know happier people are more likely to indulge in more things, whether that be a treatment or retail. And also the loyalty is such a key part of it, because it does feel disloyal. You know, the amount of times I speak to and stylists, how disheartened they feel when their customers in front of them finding it, and I think that does feel disloyal, and you've got to gain that loyalty yourself, and you've got to look at, well, do I feel like I actually gave that customer a reason to buy from us? Did I actually give them some useful information that they wouldn't find online, something that's actually bespoke to them rather than just product detail?
I think it's a really good point, and I think that if somebody does buy a product online that you have recommended, it's actually a really massive compliment that they trusted you. And so that creates that loyalty because they believed in you enough to go and buy the product that you recommended. So okay, they didn't buy it from you, and you're not going to make profit out of that, but you're perhaps going to get the loyalty and they're going to come back because they believed in what you said. Yeah. So as I say, I think retail's here for us to stay.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for answering our questions.